Hello and welcome to our review of Veronica Mars. I'm Paul,
And I'm Dave.
and this week we are discussing the episode Lord of the Pies. This episode originally aired November 21st, 2006. Alrighty, so let us start off with the number one film in America, which I'm not even going to bother asking Dave. It's still Happy Feet, because of course it is, it's Happy Feet.
Mildly surprised, especially with double checking down the list with the one or two things that have kind of popped up along the list. And I most definitely remember one that's on the list, but how it did not bother actually beating out Happy Feet mildly surprised me.
Yes, well, Happy Feet was like a huge deal at the time.
Yeah. Like in some cases, I can supposedly understand with your favorite animal being penguins.
Yeah, penguins. I love penguins. Penguins are amazing. Although I've actually never seen Happy Feet. It just didn't interest me at the time.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm
Not
not.
even with the penguin sort of aspect of it, or just the dancing penguins, where sort of like, that goes too far out of disbelief for me.
No, no, no. I love the penguins. I love the idea of dancing penguins. I just don't really like musicals.
No, no, that's understandable.
And especially jukebox musicals, because they usually use a bunch of songs I don't like.
Yeah, essentially just sort of the case of, man, we need to put some songs into this musical to get this thing to work. Does anyone have a radio?
What songs were in this? Because I feel like it's Prince, Stevie Wonder, Freddie Mercury, Stevie Wonder. I mean, yeah, there's nothing in this that I'd be like, oh, I want to see a musical with these songs in it.
Hmm.
I'd be like, I mean, if they came on the radio, I wouldn't necessarily switch, but eh.
Kind of the marvelous case of, you can listen to them, and for the time they were good, but you can also kind of turn your brain off and not pay too much attention and not drive your brain insane.
Yeah, it's just eh for me. Anyway,
Mhm.
number one song in America, it's still My Love by Justin Timberlake featuring T.I.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so for video games, again, this was apparently a huge week for releases, so I'm just gonna. Oh, I know why. Yeah, so I'm just gonna pick out a couple of the heavy hitters here, and we'll go over those.
Mhm.
Okay, so November 16th, if you had a PSP or PS3, you could pick up the Sega Genesis collection, where you got a.
Understandable, but also the slight case of, despite the things on the front of the box that they showed off, I'm not exactly sure how much the collection kind of covers.
It's like, just looking at it, like, it's pretty friggin' good. Like, so you
Like
get.
just about everything, even the couple of questionable things.
Okay, I didn't have a Genesis growing up, but I would say that if you bought this, you would get a good sampling of what made the Genesis great.
Now, little glance at what they had here on Wikipedia. No, it definitely looks like it.
There's a good sampling of kind of what the Genesis was about here.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then there were a couple of unlockable games depending on the platform you purchased it on, which again, some kind of fun stuff there.
Understandable. It was still sort of a thing that they did at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, moving on. Also on November 16th, if you had a PSP, you could pick up Sonic Rivals.
Slight case of, even with the Sonic games, I can't remember this one.
I think it was a PSP exclusive. Uh,
ONK Eraser, but
yeah,
also the case of, it was Eraser? Yeah,
apparently.
it's also understandable.
Apparently. Moving on to the 17th, if you had a PS3, my god, were you in luck this week, because you could pick up, you could pick up Call of Duty 3, but that would make you very lucky.
Yeah, kind of the marvelous case of new system on the block and whatnot, and just kind of picking up the things that are coming along. So,
Yes, this, I'm pretty sure, is the release week for the PS3. Just looking at what we're getting. Also on the 17th, if you picked up your PS3 that week, you could pick up, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Genji Days of the Blade.
Yeah. The slight case of I'm not exactly sure which one it is because it's just as generic as most of the other particular things of the time.
Yeah, I just remember this from the box art and seeing it in the store all the time and being like, that looks cool, and then never buying it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, on the 17th, if you had a PS3, you could pick up Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which, I mean, I hope you didn't, because it wasn't very good, but, it was available.
It would make sense at the time, but it's also kind of the case of it's not exactly the best option.
Still on the 17th, if you were picking up a PS3, you could get Resistance Fall of Man.
Yeah, not in the case of one of the series I remember seeing and had mild interest, but just never managed to get to it.
Same. Same. Also on the 17th, if you had a PS3, you could pick up Ridge Racer 7.
Because racing game.
Yeah, pretty much. And finally, on the 17th, if you had a PS3, you could pick up Tony Hawk's Project 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, now moving on to the 19th, which is apparently when the Wii released, because by God, do we have a ton of Wii games. Okay, so just to shorten things up, these are all on the 19th and on the Wii. You can pick up Call of Duty 3.
Yeah, understandable, because with the particular controls, it makes it decent for first-person shooters.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Excite Truck, which actually was a pretty fun game.
That was interesting for its concept.
Yes. Again, Marvel Ultimate Alliance came to the Wii. You could pick up this little game called Rayman Raving Rabbids.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I'm sure we don't have time within this episode to discuss, but oh yeah, this was the start of it, people. This was the bloody start of it.
Yes. I remember this game actually being pretty good, though.
It was interesting enough for its concept, but just, man, the
Yeah.
things that happened with Rayman.
Yeah, yeah. Also on the 19th on the Wii, you could pick up Red Steel.
Interesting enough for its concept, never actually played the game itself. Did play its sequel, but again, interesting enough concept, but also the case of the technology was not quite advanced enough yet.
Yes, that's what I remember about it. I was like, oh, that's a super interesting concept. And then I played like a demo or something, and I was like, oh, the tech needs another couple of years for this.
Yeah, yeah.
So also on the 19th, still on the Wii, you could pick up Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. Also on the Wii, you could pick up Trauma Center Second Opinion.
No, pretty much one of the best sort of ideas for the Switch sort of games that kind of came out for it, aside from the other two obvious ones.
Yes, there were two kind of big releases, though, on the Wii that particular day. One of them being The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Yeah, because they couldn't just be happy with releasing it on the GameCube. They had to also release it on a Switch version because it was the big thing coming out at the time. And it's like, we need to sell this system. What do we have that we could put onto it? Well, we do have the old Zelda from the previous system. Perfect, a Zelda. Throw it on there.
Yes, and you mean a Wii version, not a Switch version. Although I understand
Sorry.
the confusion because Nintendo's done this a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a thing, but I'll keep my mouth shut.
And finally, on the 19th, if you picked up a Wii, you got a little pack-in game called Wii Sports.
You know, the thing that Nintendo should supposedly think on doing again. Because it's a decent enough idea, but it's the case of it makes you sort of think, are they really okay? Do they really need the money? Because they just don't bother doing this concept anymore.
Yeah, especially with the Switch 2 thing where they're like, oh, you can get this... What was that thing called? It was like Switch 2, like
welcome
yeah, whatever it was called,
of.
and they're charging $10 for it, and it's like, who's gonna pay $10 for that?
Like, the very most would just be either technology professors or other sorts of things that would be interested in showing the class concepts and ideas for how systems and other sorts of things like that would work. But even then, it would just be the case of, cool enough idea. Do we really want to give this to your customers when they're probably not really interested in it?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, why not just make it a pack-in? Like, just give that away. I don't understand that. Anyway, The final game for the 19th, if you had an Xbox or Xbox 360 and you felt like going to Burger King, you could pick up a little game called Sneak King.
Oh my god, that's right. This was the thing that happened.
Yes, it was, where Burger King decided to get into the video game market.
Yeah. Like, I
And
think out of most, it was just this one, or did they manage one or two other ones?
they had a couple of games, actually. So they had another game that released on the same day, which was called Pocket Bike Racer,
Huh.
which I is yeah. The other one that you might be more familiar with is a game they released. I don't remember when they released this one. Oh, this came out a little while later, a couple of days. Called Big Bumpin'.
Oh god, and they made it as a Mario Kart racer?
It's like a bumper car game. Yeah, I think they were trying to kind of Mario Kartize something here.
Like, on the one hand, it's also understandable, but just kind of the case of, yeah, again, at the time, like, they had the particular mascot, and it was somewhat understandable, but oh god, those early 2000s.
I think it was also like you could get them super cheap. Like I think the games were like $5 if you bought a meal at Burger King or something.
It leaves you the question whether it's the case of they had the funds and whatnot to sell it off that cheap, or they just had so many that were supposedly created that they had to find some way to get them out.
Okay, it was a promotional release of Burger King themed games. The Burger King marketing. Okay, yeah, the games were available for $3.99 with the purchase of any Burger King value meal.
Hmm.
Uh, Sold more than 3.2 million copies.
Well, the strategy definitely works, I suppose. Whether or not that would look decent enough on any of the finances or whatnot would probably be thrown into question, but if you get results, I suppose.
So apparently, it increased their sales by 40% during that quarter. So apparently, a lot of people went in to pick up these games, and because they had to, they got Burger King as well. So
Then,
it sounds like it worked
most
out for
everything
them.
attracts.
A couple of last games here that we should quickly mention. November 20th, if you had an Xbox 360, you could pick up this little game called Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally, on November 21st, which is the day this episode aired, if you had a PC, you could go to the store, or more likely you'd be buying it on Steam. You could pick up the Elder Scrolls 4 Knights of the Nine expansion for Oblivion.
Yeah. Again, the case of never got caught up in Oblivion until the ridiculously big thing that released a couple, or at least a year or two later after this.
Ah, yes. The game we shall not name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty, so let us move on to the episode. Alrighty. After two people find Chip Diller, the president of the Pi Sigma Sigma fraternity, passed out, Veronica gets hired as a photographer for the Hearst newspaper. Logan requests that Veronica stop looking into the serial rapist case but she refuses and they fight. The Hearst Board of Trustees is going to decide whether or not to shut down the fraternities, but an important member, Selma Rose, goes missing in the middle of the party. Dean O'Dell immediately believes that she's gone missing, asking Veronica and Keith for help. Veronica speaks to one of the Lilith House girls, while Keith speaks with Selma's husband. Veronica poses as a reporter to get news from Sheriff Lamb on the case. Veronica speaks to Dick, who says that Chip Diller had a Roman numeral Easter egg shoved up his ass. Veronica suspects the Lilith House girls. Sorry, was that Dave?
Gross.
Yes, it was not pleasant. Keith finds out that Selma might have disappeared to get away from her husband. Veronica shows Wallace the Roman numerals, and they deduce that it is a date. And Veronica learns that a sorority house member died on that day. Veronica confronts a sorority girl about the dead member, and she implies that others believe something happened to her. After finding out that her leaving her husband after 10 years would be beneficial to Selma, Veronica and Keith break into the Roses' home and find Selma on the couch. Selma tells the pair why she has disappeared. Mr. Rose is trying to scam her for more money and has blackmailed her with knowledge of a lesbian affair with her dog walker. Chip Diller gets into a fight with the other Pi Sigs, and Veronica gets involved. However, Veronica is pulled away by a security guard hired by Logan. Veronica is angry with Logan about this, but they eventually reconcile and say "I love you" to each other. Sheriff Lamb arrests Mr. Rose when Selma is found in the guest house, and Selma forces Mr. Rose to give her a favorable settlement. We also find out that this whole affair thing wasn't legitimate. He was using this college girl to manipulate his soon-to-be ex-wife. Selma decides to dissolve the Greek system. Veronica discusses the girl who fell off the roof. Veronica discusses the girl who fell off the roof, and she attempted suicide when the Pi Sigs mistreated her. Veronica states her belief that the Lilith House girls faked more than one rape. And Logan becomes distraught when he sees Veronica decline his phone call. Okay, so what do you think of this episode, Mr. Dave? And then we'll get into the kind of big guest star that you might not be aware of.
Yeah, with that.
Or interesting, I should say.
Yeah. Again, it was interesting enough with the concept and whatnot, though I think it was one of the cases whether or not, like, just with the couple things, or just either watching the series for so long, having a bit more of an eye for sort of things, kind of caught on that there was a student kind of involved with the lesbian allegations and whatnot from there. So it's sort of like, that's not really the case with this, is it? And sort of figuring out the case with that. But nevertheless, it was an interesting enough idea, kind of with the build up of the sort of idea, and then just the case of Keith and Veronica coming in and just seeing her with the dog sitting on the couch, explaining things from there. Always a interesting scene, seeing how that sort of stuff is done. But then, just the case of little bits of the whole run around with stuff, and then just the bloody end where it was the case of this stuff isn't actually happening with the things that just, oh my god.
Well, okay, so we know that some of the attacks are legitimate, but we do know that some of these girls have faked being attacked, which does make things messier for Veronica and the people investigating.
Yeah, just the case of everyone else's supposed thoughts and stupid things for trying to get things stupid.
Yes. Alrighty, so there was kind of an interesting guest star in this episode. Are you familiar with Patty Hearst?
Not immediately off the top of my head, and double checking through the cast list.
Okay, so Patty Hearst, for those of you who don't know, are you... Okay. Are you familiar with the theory of Stockholm Syndrome?
The basic understanding of the idea, not exactly sure of the textbook definition, but the basic idea of it.
Yeah, okay, so for those of you who don't know, Stockholm System is basically if somebody gets kidnapped, they spend enough time with their captors, they start to identify and sympathize with the captors. Okay, so Patty Hearst, when she was like 19 or 20, was kidnapped by the SLA, who ransomed her. They were a like urban guerrilla group in, I think they kidnapped her in like Berkeley. Anyway, she ended up sympathizing with her captors and helping them on numerous bank robberies. She actually makes a guest star in this appearance or in this episode where she plays, what's her name? The lady. Selma.
Yes,
Yes. So that was just kind of a fun little nod, I think. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Also, there was supposed to be a kiss featuring Patty Hearst's character and the dog walker she allegedly had a relationship with, although the network decided to nix it, and I'm not entirely sure why, because they had done things like that previously, so I don't know why this was an issue all of a sudden. But who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Anyway, if there is nothing else about this episode, next week we will be discussing the episode Spit and Eggs.
Oh boy.
Okay. In this episode, when the Greek system at Hearst College is suddenly reinstated, Veronica enlists the help of her friends in patrolling a party on the lookout for date rape drugs. Eventually, she learns the identity of the Hearst rapist. In addition, Dean O'Dell acts increasingly erratically before he mysteriously appears dead in his office. Yes, so we are going to find out who is the rapist, and then we are going to, all of us, right away, have another mystery to move into.
Ooh.
Yes. Do you have any ideas who it could be? Who our rapist on campus could be?
It's sadly a bit of a case of from previous seasons, I've tried for keeping at least a list of the character names and other particular sorts of things, but haven't gotten a decent start with this one. So the face is in the mind that I have in mind, but can't specifically name the character or whatnot from there.
Okay. It should be interesting. Alrighty. If there's nothing else, I've been Paul.
And I've been Dave.